When I embarked on my trip to Europe earlier this summer, there were many coasters that I was very excited to finally get on, many of which are now currently in my top 10 overall favorite coasters. I've gone over all of these in my last few videos. Today, I'm going to go over something a little bit different. Among the 125 coasters that I rode on this trip, there were a handful of coasters that I can't say I was all too excited to ride. I intended to only ride them once for the credit, then move on with my day. However, after I got off these coasters, I was caught off guard and was very surprised how good they really were. So much so that I wanted to re-ride some of these coasters again, going against my original plan of only riding them once. These are the top 10 most surprising coasters from my trip to Europe. As I always say in these videos, this is strictly my opinion and my experiences on these coasters. The coasters in this video are by no means my favorite coasters from the trip. These are just coasters that I had zero expectations for, but afterwards had me thinking, wow, why was that actually really good? While these coasters may have been a surprise to me, it should be no surprise to you that you should totally drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. The YouTube algorithm is always watching your every move, so do me and yourself a favor, drop a sub to the channel. Number 10. Rutscherbahn at Tivoli Gardens. This over 100-year-old side friction coaster was the very first coaster on my trip, and it definitely caught me by surprise. Being an older coaster, where the speed of the ride is determined by a brakeman that's on the train, I didn't have too many expectations going into this coaster. However, my first ride was a huge surprise to me with how much airtime this coaster gave and how smooth the ride was. I wanted to ride it again immediately after my first ride, but I was on a time crunch that day and I wanted to get everything else done at the park before having to leave for Bakken that same day. Thankfully, as I was leaving the park, I walked past Rutscherbahn and saw that it had a very short line, and I got on immediately. My second ride was even crazier than my first ride. The brakeman didn't touch the brakes once at all, making for an absolutely insane ride. Rutscherbahn was definitely an awesome way to start off the entire trip. Number 9. Mine Train Olen at Bakken. Just a few hours after riding Rutscherbahn, I was given another surprise of a coaster at Bakken with Mine Train Olen. This is an intimate family coaster. I had literally no expectations of this coaster at all. One and done, and go back to Tornado. My first ride was in the back row, and that first drop was shocking. The drop fakes out to the left, then makes a sharp turn to the right. In the back row, you fly through this, and the drop is very steep too. The rest of the ride is pretty solid, but nothing mind-blowing. It was really that first drop that had me coming back for more rides. The setting was really cool too. The coaster feels secluded in the woods for most of the layout. Number 8. Loopgarou at Walibi, Belgium. Loopgarou is a rare Vekoma wooden coaster, and this coaster does not have the best reputation. I've always heard that Loopgarou is rather rough and doesn't have many redeeming factors. I won't deny, it's not a smooth coaster. However, there were a few good moments of airtime. The layout is a little bit wonky, and the profiling is definitely not right at parts, but I feel like that added to the ride for me. I don't really want to say that it's rough, but more so that it shuffles a lot. I rode in the front row and had a full train, so that probably minimized the roughness. But I really enjoyed Loopgarou and thought it gave a solid ride. I wanted to get a second ride on it, but for some reason this had one of the longest lines in the park, while Conda had a very minimal line, so my priorities were aimed over there. Whenever I do come back to Walibi, Belgium, I will absolutely give Loopgarou 2 more rides and see if it holds up in my rankings. Number 7. Mammut at Olympus Park Tripsdrill. Mammut was the first wooden coaster that was designed and built entirely from German companies. I've heard many people say that Mammut is a Gerstlauer wooden coaster, but Gerstlauer only built the trains. Either way, Mammut is definitely a one-of-a-kind wooden coaster. I really had no expectations for this coaster. If anything, I was expecting it to be a little bit rough and not really enjoyable. To my surprise, it wasn't rough at all. It just shuffles a little bit. The trains ran and felt a bit similar to an Intamin prefab train. Mammut had some surprising moments of airtime and has a very unconventional layout for a wooden coaster. The theming for the pre-lift portion was also really cool. I had no idea about that. The park was rather crowded the day I was there, so sadly I didn't have time for a re-ride on Mammut. I really want to see how this runs in the back row. Just another reason to return to this amazing theme park. Number 6. Desert Race at Heide Park. I had very low expectations for this intimate accelerator coaster. The layout just seemed dull, and it's just plopped in the middle of a field. Desert Race is also a very near clone to Rita at Alton Towers, of which I've never heard all too much praise about. The only differences being some height and speed stats. Desert Race definitely caught me by surprise. The launch was a typical hydraulic launch, which is always great. If anything, it was a little bit more punchy than I was expecting it to be. The layout has a few twisted airtime hills that I was not expecting to feel much from, but they pulled some pretty decent lateral Gs with a nice pop of airtime. The layout itself isn't anything special, a little uninspiring, but overall was significantly more fun than I was expecting, especially towards the front. Number 5. Joris in the Draak, specifically Fireside at Efteling. This dueling GCI wooden coaster is easily the best one that I've ever been on. I didn't know all too much about Joris in the Draak, other than that it recently had had some DJI Titan track added to some parts of the ride. I did the water side first, and it was about what I expected it to be. Very fun, and some cool interactions with the opposing side. Then I did fire side, and I was very surprised how out of control it was. Great moments of airtime, better interactions with the opposing track, very smooth, and a few wonky elements that you don't usually see on a DJI coaster. Towards the end, there was an odd outward banked airtime hill. It didn't pull much with forces, but it had me thinking, whoa, that was really cool. I only did front row for both sides. I wish I had time to do the back row on both sides, but the park was pretty crowded that day. Even more reason to come back to this phenomenal park. Number 4, DrageKongen at Djurs Sommerland. This Intamin family suspended coaster is pretty much Intamin's version of the more popular Vekoma family suspended coaster, so my expectations weren't all too high. DrageKongen starts off with a huge surprise, nearly launching you out of the station into the pre-lift section, which in itself pulls some decent positive G's and a cool fog effect. I had no idea the ride did this. I was genuinely shocked my first ride when this happened. The rest of the ride is also much more intense than I was expecting, especially the overbank after the first drop. There's a few near misses and foot choppers that were pretty cool, and many tight and whippy turns. I absolutely prefer this model over the Vekoma version. DrageKongen was a real surprise that really caught me off guard. For number 3, we are going to stay at Djurs Sommerland for Juvelen. This Intamin straddle coaster was a huge surprise for me. Having ridden most of the straddle coasters in the United States, I didn't have any high expectations for Juvelen. Juvelen shows that this family-oriented coaster can really pack a punch and pull some forces. Many moments of surprising positive G's, rapid-fire twists and turns, and the launches were very good for a tire drive launch. The theming and the setting for Juvelen only added to the experience, sending you flying past waterfalls and other structures around the ride. Without the straddled seating, Juvelen would still be a solid coaster. The straddled seating definitely makes the ride feel more intense and out of control. I ended up giving Juvelen 4 rides that day, and I could have ridden it more if I had stayed at the park longer that day. Number 2, Colorado Adventure at Phantasialand. I knew close to nothing about this Vekoma mine train going into it. Colorado Adventure was the smoothest, yet the most intense mine train that I've ever ridden. It also had the most airtime that I've ever felt on a mine train. The theming was also very well done, which shouldn't be any surprise being at Phantasialand. I rode in the back row, and there were a few drops that went into an indoor section that really threw me out of my seat. I really wanted to give this ride a second ride, but it was a holiday on the day I was there. Lines all over the park were pretty long, and I made the mistake of only giving myself 1 day at this phenomenal park. If you're planning to visit Phantasialand, give the park 2 days. You'll thank me later. Number 1, Euro-Mir at Europa Park. I loved Euro-Mir so much that I almost had it in my top 15 coasters from the entire trip. I only knew a little bit about Euro-Mir going into it. I knew it was a prototype for Mach's spinning coaster, and it had a very odd and unique layout. Is it rough and janky? Yeah, a little bit, but that's part of why I adored this coaster so much. Euro-Mir is such a quirky and bizarre coaster, starting with a spiral lift hill with a banger of a soundtrack, followed by oddly shaped wild mouse-like turns as the cars spin. Here you can even give high fives to the riders in the car next to you. Then the real fun begins. The first big drop is a little janky, but it is so much fun. The rest of the layout feels pretty out of control, while spinning in different directions as you go. It is a controlled spin, but it's still cool to be spinning nonetheless. And some of the turns at the end of the ride were surprisingly intense. This was going to be a one-and-done coaster for me for my time at Europa Park. I ended up riding it 3 times, and I would have done it more if there weren't so many other things to get done at Europa Park. I've heard that Euro-Mir has a big following to it, and I absolutely see why. I hope this quirky coaster sticks around for many more years to come. And there you have it, those were the most surprising coasters to me from my Europe trip. Are any of these coasters among your favorites? What coasters have you ridden that really caught you off guard? Let me know in the comments. This will probably be my last ranking video that I'll do specifically for my Europe trip. As we get closer to the end of the coaster season, I'm going to start bringing back some series that I started earlier this year, like Originality Check. In that series, I take a look specifically at the coasters of a park and judge them based upon originality. Every park that I went to in Europe will be getting an episode in that series. I'm also going to start doing some general review videos for individual parks, both in the United States and in Europe. My series State of Stats I also want to dive back into, and maybe try figuring out a way to make a similar series, but looking worldwide instead. I'll leave a link to playlists for these series if you want to check them out. I've got a lot of cool stuff coming up for the off season, along with a few vlogs that I have to get caught up on. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of it. Alright guys, I've wrapped the video up here. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next loop.